But let's
Mhm.
hop into it, dude. And the first thing that I really want to talk about today is who we think the biggest X factor is for the Niners. So obviously, Niners hopping into the playoffs is the first seed. We have a bye week this week, and then we play again next week. We're going to play the lowest seed remaining. And as we know, the Niners have kind of fumbled the bag in the playoffs these last couple of years. And there's always some things going wrong, whether you think it's coaching or lackluster quarterback, whatever you think it is. There's always something going wrong. And something that I just want to get into is what you think the biggest X factor, or who you think the biggest X factor is for the Niners in the playoffs.
That's a great question. You could go so many different directions with this. When you think X factor, like what's the definition of an X factor? Someone who is unheralded or a little beneath the radar, or someone who, frankly, if they're not there, the whole thing falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with that one.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who is integral to everything, maybe the most valuable player on the team. And what's funny is all year people were arguing, is it Purdy? Is it McCaffrey? The most valuable player on the 49ers is Trent Williams. It's
Mm-hmm.
not even close.
Mm-hmm.
Every single play they run is predicated on him winning his block.
Mm-hmm.
And he does, like 100% of the time. If he misses any time, they're in trouble. They have a decent enough offensive line with him there. They can run to the left. They can do, and they have phenomenal blindside protection. But if he's not out there, all of a sudden they have the cheapest, worst offensive line in the league. And I don't know that you're going to win a Super Bowl without. So he's the oldest player on the team. He doesn't practice very much. He's a future Hall of Famer. It's all about him. And I think we're going to talk about teams that challenge the Niners a little bit later. But I think the reason that the Niners don't want to face Cleveland again is because Cleveland has Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett is the only player in the league who can win reps. Not all of them. Like against most DNs, Trent Williams wins 10 out of 10 times.
Totally.
Against Myles Garrett, 8 out of 10, 7
Mm-hmm.
out of 10, because Myles Garrett is that good. And if so, that's why that matchup, who knows if the Niners will get to the Super Bowl, who they'll face, but Cleveland is the one team that can sort of match up with the Niners X Factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think Trent, I mean, all year I've been saying the same thing. I think Trent is our most valuable player. I mean, you got McCaffrey in there as well, but Trent it holds the whole thing together. And when Trent wasn't there, we saw how. I mean, when Trent's not there, this offensive line is like bottom tier offensive line. Like
They
it's
can't
not good.
run, they can't pass. Like it's all bad. But like if
Yeah. They,
McCaffrey goes out, you still have
mhm,
Jordan Mason, Elijah Mitchell, Debo Samuel. You can run the ball.
you're right.
And frankly, if Purdy goes down, I don't know. Maybe Sam Darnold could move the ball a little bit. I don't know. I'm not going to
Maybe.
say anything. I don't know.
Maybe Trey could have. I don't know. I don't know. But no, I agree, dude. And that's the thing too. Yeah, I mean, we saw it. We saw when Trent was down how horrid this offensive line was and gives Purdy no time. So I mean, that's a great point. Absolutely.
And
I
running
kind
the
of
ball
took.
is hard too without him. Like every
Oh
run
yeah.
that's successful is to the left. And if
Mm-hmm.
you take him out, like where you
You
going?
don't run
Where
nowhere.
you
Yeah,
going?
you can't
Behind
run
Jalen
anywhere.
Moore? Yeah, I don't know.
Yikes. You're right,
Yeah.
dude. No, Trent, if Trent doesn't show up, which I mean, I'm obviously fully expecting he will, but if for some reason Trent's not playing like he has, then there's no shot that this offense would be able to move like it has. So I'm
I
with
mean,
you on
it
that,
just
dude.
comes down to the oldest players in health,
Hmm.
which is a little scary in football. But football is one big tightrope act anyway.
Hmm. Totally. 100%,
Hmm.
dude. Um, I kind of took a different route. I got two guys that I think really have to show up who sometimes don't show up. But if they do show up, I think it's really going to boost our chances. And the first one's Kyle Shanahan. We've seen
Yeah,
in the past, and I haven't been too
yeah.
critical of Shanahan this season as much as I have in the past because I think for the most part, he's been generally really building up schemes and helping this offense our offense looks extremely good, and it looks for the most part, and that's why I haven't been bagging on Shanahan too much. But obviously, we've seen when the playoffs roll around, Kyle starts to get a little conservative, starts to play not to lose, starts to make some really dumb decisions, and then ultimately comes back to bite us. And that's happened many times. I mean, on so many different occasions. So like that's my biggest thing too is that all season I've been saying, yeah, the Niners might be this good, but I'm not getting my hopes up just yet because I'm kind of waiting for a Kyle Shanahan blunder, dude?
I mean, didn't the Christmas night game feel like one? And maybe people
Mm-hmm.
will say, hey, Kyle was playing 4D chess. He didn't show his A game plan. He went with something else. He tried to throw to win the game. If they face him in the Super Bowl, he'll have his A game plan.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Otherwise, that's the only way to explain him having the worst performance of the season in that
Yeah,
game.
totally. It was that game was definitely his worst. It was just nothing looked good from Shanahan in that game, which definitely scared me. And I saw a bunch of like, oh, they'll meet him back in the Super Bowl, they'll be fine. Like, how do we know that? How do we know Kyle's got that up his sleeve? I have no idea. But all I know is that we've seen Kyle Shanahan choke in the playoffs time and time again, and I'm just praying that if he's not going to choke, this is the year to not choke, Kyle, because this is the best team we've got. Our offense looks the best. You finally have a good quarterback. So this is a year I'm hoping it doesn't happen.
It
But
seems like he blinks in the big pressure moments,
totally.
Against Dallas 2 years ago in Dallas, Debo had to walk over to him during the game and say, "Give me the ball."
Mm-hmm.
And then against Dallas last year at home, I think it was Juszczyk and McCaffrey had to go up to him and be like, "Can we just stop trying to trick these guys and line up and go right at him?"
Yeah.
Kyle's, I think sometimes when there's a lot of pressure, he loses instead of having confidence in what the Niners have been doing, he tries to trick the other team.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, he calls plays that maybe his team isn't as good at running, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to just trusting that he has the best team. And if he calls the plays that they had the most success with throughout the season, that the talent will win. I don't know.
Yeah.
He needs to not make that mistake this year.
I totally agree. And I think that like you said, he just tries to outsmart the other team. I think he thinks way too hard. Not that he shouldn't be thinking hard, but I just think he's like that guy in chess. Like if you're playing chess, he's just like, well, if I do this, then he's gonna do that. So then I don't have to do that. So then he's gonna do that. And it's like he's just think. It's like, dude, just make your move. Go with what's been working this entire time.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
made that mistake so many times.
You'd understand if he was coaching like a wild card team or some team that was really overperforming, but this team is really good. There's so many ways that they can impose their will. Going back to that Ravens game,
Mm-hmm.
it's like he expected the Ravens to try to shut down McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
First thing you got to do is shut down McCaffrey. You got to play it in the box. They didn't do that
Mm-mm.
at all. They didn't stop the run. They played two deep safeties and said, we have the best pass defense in the league. We're going to play zone and we're going to dare you to try to pass into it. And Kyle's like, okay, I'll try. And it didn't work. But the run
Mm-mm.
was available to them all night
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't commit to it. Maybe Kyle would say the score got away from him, but I bet you if they play him again, they won't let that happen.
Yeah, definitely not. And that was my biggest thing in that game too, was because McCaffrey had a couple of runs and he was killing it, and Shanahan just abandoned it. Like you said, he like fell into their trap. They were like forcing him to pass. They weren't even forcing him. It's just like they were baiting him to pass, and he was like, "All right, I'm gonna start passing." And obviously Purdy was not on his mark either that game.
I've
But
memorized that game because it was very interesting and the Niners lost. But if
mm-hmm,
I remember correctly, they were playing like terribly in the first half. Three picks in the first four drives. I've memorized this game. I think it was the fifth drive or their last drive of the first half. They're down 13-5.
mm-hmm,
And I believe every play except one goes to McCaffrey. Pass to McCaffrey, run to McCaffrey. There's a quarterback sneak for a first down, but then he gets like a 39-yard run and then a 12-yard touchdown or whatever, 9-yard touchdown. And it's just the McCaffrey drive. It's so easy. And they're back in the game, 13-12. Ravens get the ball, kick a field goal, go into halftime up 4. Niners get the ball to start the second half. And I think they go like run, pass, 3 and out. And it's like, man, you had it.
mm-hmm.
You were right there in the game and you didn't commit to running right there. And then it was turnover, touchdown. And they were down 33-12 real fast. And maybe Kyle said you can't run at that point. But I think they can beat the Ravens, I guess is what we're trying to say. But maybe that's a topic for later in the show. I think they
Well,
can
I
beat the
agree.
Ravens.
I agree. I think they can beat the Ravens, but again, like I've been
Yeah.
saying, yeah, it comes down to Kyle Shanahan. What's he gonna do? I mean, is he gonna crumble and is he gonna, go with?
Actually, sorry to cut you off, but for
No.
me, I'm more concerned about Wilkes against the Ravens than Shanahan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's valid too. I think it's.
He got
I mean,
smoked.
he did get smoked. I mean, the
He got
whole
smoked.
game,
was bad.
everywhere it was bad. So I agree too. That's extremely valid.
He made Lamar Jackson look like super Lamar Jackson. They couldn't
Mm-hmm.
stop him.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. No, and that's true as well. And I think for the Niners, I don't know if the Niners defense, I don't know. I mean, I guess back with Saleh and D'Amico, they could have, but it's like I feel like the Niners have always had
I don't
trouble
know
with
about that.
quarterbacks like
That's what I'm
Lamar.
saying.
That yeah,
That's what
so
I'm
it's like
saying.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's why I'm leaning towards the offense where it's like just get this offense to where we know it can be at such a high level, and that will help us
Yeah.
out so much, right?
It's just tough though. Like if the Niners are like their game plan against Baltimore is on offense, okay, let's dial it back, be conservative, run it a
Mm-hmm.
lot, kind of like what we used to do with Jimmy Garoppolo, because
Mm-hmm.
this is the best pass defense in the league. Okay, all right. Well, your defense is letting Lamar Jackson escape the pocket and make throws on the run, and those plays are going to be bigger than your runs. It just is. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
I keep coming back to Steve Wilks. You got to keep Lamar Jackson in one spot. And I know that's easier said than done, but they did a terrible job of that in that game. They rushed
Mm-hmm.
four. The defensive ends kept rushing past him. And like if you picture it,
Mm-hmm.
those diagonal scramble lanes up and
Mm-hmm.
out,
Mm-hmm.
when the defensive ends rush past, those diagonal scramble lanes kill you because all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden you're on the perimeter quick. What they did with Jalen Hurts was they didn't give those up. They didn't.
Yep.
They were selfless in their rushes. They weren't trying to get sacks, and they forced him to rush back and around, and he wasn't fast enough to pull it off. Like Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner could run him down. You got to make Lamar Jackson do that. You can't give
Mm-hmm.
up those diagonal scramble lanes. You'll lose. He doesn't even have to run. All he has to do is get out of the pocket and make throws. He's as good as anyone I've ever seen doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
the Niners like invited him to do it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, and that's what the Niners. That's like we've said. That's how they've been against quarterbacks like Lamar, and obviously Lamar's kind of one of one. I mean, he's such an elite runner, and his passing has improved drastically, which makes him much harder to be able to contain. But Steve
I
Wilkes
think it's
definitely has.
it. No,
Go
sorry. Go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna
Well,
say Steve Wilkes needs some answers, but go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
well, I think it's sort of it was an issue for D'Amico and Salah too. It's sort of
Mm-hmm.
a symptom of the wide nine. Just
Mm-hmm.
picture the wide nine. You take these DNs, you put them as far out as possible and say, don't worry about the run. Like play the run on the way to the quarterback. You're inviting them to rush past the quarterback. And that's why I think against a stationary quarterback, it's brutal. But against a
Mm-hmm.
guy who wants to get out of the pocket, it's vulnerable.
Tough. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally, dude. That's a great point. Steve Wilkes is definitely he's gonna be another X factor. That's a good one. And I had one more guy that I did want to bring up too, and that's Jake Moody. He scares me, man. And the one thing that I saw, so against the Rams, because Moody, he obviously
Good
missed
call.
that kick. He missed a kick against the Browns early in the season, and then he was pretty much good up until that, and then he's been pretty solid for the most part, but he's been okay. But against the Rams, he missed. Obviously, he missed a couple kicks, and all I see is, oh, at least he missed them now and not in the playoffs. I'm like, well, how do you know that he's gonna make them in the playoffs? Like, what? It doesn't just because he missed them week 18 doesn't mean he's going to make them in the playoffs. So if Jake Moody doesn't come through, because sometimes Kyle has to rely on his field goal unit, and we don't have Robbie Gold anymore. So if Jake Moody doesn't come through, it could be brutal.
Yeah, Jake was in a great spot where the Niners were winning by double digits. It felt like 3/4 of the season.
Hmm.
He had to kick field goals, but you can't remember any one that like he absolutely had to make. Oh, you can remember a couple, but he missed them. And the one in
Hmm.
Cleveland.
Yep.
That's really the only one I could think of where he's like, man, this
Yeah.
this is it. This is the game.
Hmm.
So I don't know if the Niners will be in that position this year, but I'm starting to look at Jake Moody like he's not the guy. And he might get through this year and he may not cost him a Super Bowl this year, but I don't know that he's going to be on the team long term because it seems like he might be a little bit of a head case with a strong leg.
Yeah. I think it kind of scares me because I hope you're right and I hope that it doesn't come down to him because if it does, that would scare the piss out of me. But it makes me go back to third round pick and you have a Super Bowl contending roster and you go and pick a kicker. And I mean, yeah, I'm all for having a good kicker, but I mean, we had Robbie Gold, and this guy clearly is not it. He's so shaky. He gives me such shaky vibes when he's out there. Like, even if he makes one, I feel like he just barely gets it
Barely
into.
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd think on such a established team, you'd want more of an established kicker, just something you don't have to worry about. But here we go. It'd be a
Uh-huh.
shame if the kicker ended the season, but football is cruel like that sometimes.
It is. It would be terrible. The rookie kicker. And I guess if you're Dallas with Brandon Aubrey, a rookie kicker's okay. That guy's like automatic, dude. He's like 36 of 36 or something on field goals. But
And they didn't draft him, did they? He was undrafted.
yeah, undrafted.
Yeah.
Yeah, see? You don't need to
Yeah.
waste a third round pick on one, dude.
You don't. You really don't.
Yeah, that didn't end up working out for us. But anyways, Shanahan and Jake Moody are kind of my two guys that I think need to show up in order for the Niners to, have their
Those are good. I like those.